Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. This week we are talking all about Spider-Man 3 as we continue our run through the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Joining us as we continue on this journey, we of course have Logan Wilkinson. How you doing, Logan?
I'm doing good.
All right. And Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on? We're talking all about Spider-Man 3 today. Before we hop into that, though, a little bit of housekeeping. If you like the show, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. We will be back next week, I believe. Cameron and I are going to do kind of a Secret Invasion season wrap-up as that closes next week. I've not gone back to it since our first episode where we did episodes 1 and 2 a month ago. So I'm going to basically binge through the rest of the series and see how that one turned out. And then August is going to be a little quiet the first couple weeks of August as I'm going off to Orlando for work stuff. And
I'm
also
moving.
a Disney World trip. Logan is moving across the country.
Yeah, true.
So we're going to be dark for a couple weeks there. And then they did just announce that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is going to be coming to Disney Plus, I think, during kind of our dark window there. I think
like August 12th, I think you said.
August 11th or 12th, yeah. So maybe when we come back, we'll do the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, just kind of keep the spider truck rolling. But we will see. That's the housekeeping. But yeah, as we continue our Spider-Man month, we are doing Spider-Man 3 here. History lesson, originally released May 4th, 2007. Other releases of the time, we had Grindhouse had come out April 6th.
Yeah.
Hot Fuzz, April 20th.
Yes.
Waitress, the movie that went on to become a big Broadway musical, May 2nd. Spider-Man 3 here, May 4th. Once, which is another movie that turned into Broadway musical, which I very much adore, was May 16th. Shrek the Third, May 18th, continuing that Spider-Man and Shrek duology that we'd seen in our last episode. This window of time is very fresh in our memories because we talked about it when we did Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which came out May 25th of 2007. We obviously did an episode and a series of that back in March.
Go check it out.
Yeah. Knocked Up was June 1st. Ocean's 13, June 8th. Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, June 15th. Live Free or Die Hard, June 27th. Ratatouille, June 27th as well. Transformers, July 3rd. And Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, July 11th, as a sense
I'm gonna say
of where we were in some of these other franchises.
I think for the first time ever, as someone who is just generally me, but also who just loves movies and all these good movies, this might be the worst lineup of movies I've ever... That's a pretty rough lineup. There are a few... Hot Fuzz is great, obviously. We're going to love Hot Fuzz. But there's a lot of, like, the second, third, fourth of things, fifth of things that are not very good in this bunch, I will say.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
We'll talk about some things. One of the spoiler for some of the awards talk. One of the awards was like best threequel, and I'm like, wow, we were already in an era where like they were just doing like here's an award for the best third movie of a thing. It was definitely.
Seven of the movies you named are a sequel or a threequel or a fifthquel, right? Yeah. That's a lot there, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely in the world of franchises here.
While Transformers, I assume it's Transformers 1, but that's going to be in like one of like 6. So even there is like, yeah.
Yep, it's still going today. Not going well today, but no. Rise of the Beast.
But it is still going.
Did come out. Yes. So we're going to do, as we've been doing, our domestic gross and worldwide gross from 2007. We did do this, back in March. So part of this will be like, how well do you guys remember that? But Spider-Man here, Spider-Man 3 had a $336.5 million domestic gross, which continued the downward trend of the first from the first movie to the second movie, and then this is down from $373.6 million on that second movie. So domestic gross wise, where do you guys think Spider-Man 3 lands?
So At World's End has got to be contender for sure, right? Because Pirates 3 did great. Transformers, I'm trying to think how good the first one did.
The first one did really well.
Shrek the Third is obviously there.
Shrek the Third is going to be up there for sure.
Harry Potter's there. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think what happened outside of summer and like what big thing would have come out in the fall. There's no Bond movie. There's no Star Wars movie.
I will say we also talked about this year with National Treasure Book of Secrets.
National Treasure Book of Secrets didn't do anything, to knock off this, because that was the second one that didn't do as good. No Bond, no Star Wars. There's not a Mission Impossible that year even. Avatar's 09. 07 really was just kind of a... There's going to be something big, I'm sure, but like it seems just like, kind of like a... Especially 06 is great too, and 08 was great. And this is like this weird in-between shit year. I'm going to say Spider-Man did number 3 domestic.
All right. How about you, Cam?
I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to drop it a bit to fourth.
Fourth? All right. So a couple honorable mentions outside the top 10. Rush Hour 3, number 16.
Again, terrible. A bad Rush Hour movie.
But still, like, realizing Rush Hour was still going that late, I'm like, oh, I definitely thought those were like...
It was definitely like a Zoolander 2 thing. It was a long time after the second one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of a, like, long overdue, The Simpsons movie was number 12.
Oh! That's a good movie.
I was a fan of The Simpsons movie.
Yeah.
It was just a movie.
20 seasons too late.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much.
It was a ton of fun, though.
Yeah.
Spider-Pig, still great.
There you go.
Yeah. I like how after The Simpsons... That's the whole other conversation. We can't get into The Simpsons. But
right outside the top 10, Ratatouille, mentioned earlier, was our number 11.
Makes sense.
$206 million. Number 10.
Oh, shit.
300. This is Sparta. Was $210 million. Number 9.
Yeah, that was a terrible year. God.
Number 9, Alvin and the Chipmunks, with $217 million. Just ahead of that, National Treasure Book of Secrets with $219 million. Coming in at number 7, $227 million. The Bourne Ultimatum, another threequel.
Oh, okay. That's at least a good one.
Number 6, I Am Legend, $256 million. Number 5, here's where we get to all our heavy hitters. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, number 5, $292 million. Number 4, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, $309 million.
Okay, well, there's going to be something from the fall then.
No. Number 3, Transformers, $319 million.
Damn, good for Transformers. So Spidey,
number 2,
is either 1 or 2.
Shrek the Third, $300.
Spider-Man 3 is number 1.
So Spider-Man 3,
wow.
Despite it being often the much maligned, Spider-Man 3 was the number 1 domestic movie that year with $336
It's also,
million.
I feel even more confident since you just ran through that. Thank you, Trevor. 07 is a shit year for movies, especially because both years on either side of it are like really good years. 08 in particular is like, or even 06 is really great actually. And then like 07 is like this weird, like, man, that year they cleared the deck on either side of it, and they just kind of got everything else in this one.
Logan.
Oh,
there he goes.
But yeah, 07 just seems like kind of a dud year with 2 great ones on either side.
Great. You froze there a little bit on our end, Logan, but you're back, so hopefully it's all good. We talked about it, I believe, with National Treasure probably going into National Treasure Book of Secrets in that 2004 to 2007 block. 2004, Shrek 2 was the number 1 spot, and Spider-Man was like number 2, and they
flipped
for the third installment. So moving over to our worldwide gross of $895 million, which was up from $788.6 million of the second movie. So third movie did do better worldwide, internationally.
Yeah.
That all of the thing, like the reason they sandwiched Venom into this movie, it worked. It did what they wanted it to do. So where do you guys think this one falls on a worldwide box office?
I actually say probably 4. I'm going to stick with 4. I think I might have I think I miscalled it with the domestic, but I think I might have it correct for the global.
Okay. How about you, Logan?
It's such a hard read. I'll say second
Okay.
worldwide. Yeah.
Let's see. Number 10, staying at number 10, 300. Number 9, National Treasure Book of Secrets. Number 8, The Simpsons movie. Made its way all the way up to number 8. Number 7, I Am Legend. Ratatouille also benefited from a worldwide audience, moving up to number 6. Transformers down to number 5. Shrek the Third down to number 4. Spider-Man 3 in there at 3. You guys split the difference.
Oh, we split the difference.
There we go.
Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix at number 2.
That makes
and Pirates
sense,
of the
yeah.
Caribbean at World's End was number 1.
I
They made like a
recall.
billion,
I did
right?
recall
Yeah.
like Pirates of the Caribbean got to number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we did not. I think we botched it completely.
Yeah. Nobody expected that being the case last time around.
Yeah.
Yep. So yes, it was number 3 worldwide there. Continuing on, movie has a runtime of 2 hours and 19 minutes in the Sony Spider-Man timeline of things. We'll talk about this a little bit more in some of the trivia stuff, but we had, of course, Spider-Man 2 had come out back in 2004, a few years earlier. Here we have Spider-Man 3, 2007, and then we're going to get The Amazing Spider-Man in July of 2012. We're going to get the reboot and all that stuff. Prior to that reboot, a Spider-Man 4 had been dated for a summer 2011 date, but that obviously would go on to fall through. Our roll call here, once again, of course, Sam Raimi continuing on for the final installment of his trilogy here. He also takes on writing duties this time around alongside his brother Ivan Raimi. They are both credited with the screenplay and screen story, having previously written Evil Dead, Darkman. Didn't realize this. I think I probably saw it in passing on the first one. Did not realize Sam Raimi was a creator of Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah.
Just did not remember that being the case.
He created Xena Warrior Princess, Hercules, and also Young Hercules.
Nope. He's only credited as a creator of Xena.
So,
like he because Hercules existed, and then he came in and did like the spin-off for Xena.
oh,
I mean, I could easily be misspeaking there, but he was not credited on Hercules writing credits or something like that. So I don't believe he was a creator.
He might have been like a
of
producer,
Hercules.
Cam. Yeah.
Yeah, possibly. And then Sam and Ivan Raimi also wrote Drag Me to Hell following Spider-Man 3 here. Additionally, credited, continuing on from the prior film, Alvin Sargent writing the screenplay. As I mentioned last week, writing credits back to 1956. Prior to this, he'd done Anywhere But Here, and he would go on to do The Amazing Spider-Man as well. I believe I'll just jump ahead to one of the trivia things that I meant to mention last week. He got a 7-figure deal to do Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. But it's, shady AF because his wife is one of the producers, like at the beginning of the movie, a Laura Ziskin production. That's his wife. So it's like, all right. So she just hired her husband to write the movie. So yeah, some shady stuff there, but Nepo babies don't have to be babies, I guess. They can be Nepo husbands. So yeah.
wait, are you saying Sam Raimi is a Nepo husband?
No, Alvin Sargent. You probably missed part of that conversation. Alvin Sargent, who is the other credited screenwriter on this.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, who had written for Spider-Man 2 as well. When he signed on for Spider-Man 2 and 3.
I missed the transitionary moment where we stopped talking. Because I heard you mention Alvin. I was like, okay. Yeah. And then you started talking about that, about his wife is I was like, I missed the beat where we switched writers we were talking about. My bad.
Yep. So yeah, weird little shady deal. Because I remember when I originally looked it up before seeing that, I was like, this guy, why did this guy get hired to write Spider-Man 2? He didn't have any credits, any anything that like seemingly would have like tied him into it, and it was seeing like in his bio, married to Laura Ziskin, and being like, wait, wasn't she in the credits of the of the first movie? Yeah, just producer. So once again, our cast of characters kicks off with Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, and James Franco, continuing on as Peter Parker / Spider-Man, Mary Jane Watson, and New Goblin / Harry Osborn. Thomas Hayden Church is our first new role here. As Sandman and Flint Barco. Oh crap! I didn't realize. Or I'm realizing I forgot to populate some credits for these people. He obviously had done and was basically hot off of Sideways, indie darling film from a couple years earlier. Topher Grace coming in as Venom and Eddie Brock, of course,
that
of
70s
prominent
show.
70s show fame at the time. Bryce Dallas Howard. I don't know if she'd done a ton prior to this as Gwen Stacy. Just off the top of my head, obviously Ron Howard's daughter.
She'd go on to do a lot, right?
And yeah, she would go on to do a lot, including the Jurassic World series,
and The Help,
Interstellar, I believe, right? The Help, and
I think Interstellar is Jessica Chastain. That's the other redhead in Hollywood. Yeah.
Sorry, I've not seen Interstellar. So
yeah,
that is totally my bad, and that is a meme that those two always get confused.
So technically, Bryce Dallas Howard is in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but
that's right. Yeah. Okay. And then obviously these days she's out there directing and doing stuff in Star Wars land. So, so shout out to Bryce Dallas Howard. One of my favorite little social media posts following Across the Spider-Verse was her and Ron Howard like gushing about it on social media, being like, from one Gwen Stacy to another, you killed it, great job, yay.
Oh, that's nice.
And I was like, oh, how sweet.
That's really cute.
Rosemary Harris once again back as May Parker, J.K. Simmons of course back as J. Jonah Jameson,
the goat,
James Cromwell as Captain Stacy.
Was so confused when I saw his name in the credits. Like, who the hell is he in this movie? I was so confused.
I remembered him there, and I'm like, oh yeah, he just doesn't do anything in this movie. It's like he just showed up, got a paycheck, and went off to probably do more indie stuff afterwards. Probably best known from Babe prior to this. Dylan Baker and Bill Nunn once again returning as Dr. Kirk Connors and Joseph Robbie Robertson. I will also shout out, since I haven't included him in the prior couple, Ted Raimi as Hoffman, kind of the other in the little group of Daily Bugle folks. Here he gets a whole spiel about the new rebranding of the Daily Bugle. And most recently he was in The Quarry, the video game The Quarry, in addition to a lot of various character work he's done over the years. Elia Baskin and Magina Tova returning as Mr. Ditkovich and Ursula, who we talked about last week. Willem Dafoe and Cliff Robertson still coming back as Norman Osborn and Ben Parker.
I know. I just, for the first time, I just realized that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is very much like the Arkham trilogy, where it's like, yeah, the Joker's only the bad guy in one of these games, but then like he's in all of the games and they can't get rid of him, and it's just sort of like, all right, like, don't worry about it. Yeah. We love the Joker. We love Green Goblin. It's fine.
And lastly here, in terms of like new cast members, despite having been in the other movies, is John Paxton as the Houseman / Bernard.
I had no idea this fact.
He was Bill Paxton's father. Yeah, that was news to me as well.
No idea.
He one of his other like trivia things is like he got his first movie role when he was 70. So like well after Bill Paxton had been doing stuff is when he decided he'd get the acting.
That's a nepo daddy.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the rare nepo daddy.
Other than other credits, not a lot. He was in the film Barbed Wire. If anybody remembers that.
Oh my gosh.
Pamela Anderson's like breakout vehicle kind of thing.
Oh wow.
Of course here in all three Spider-Man movie, even though this is like the first one I ever remember him being a character in. But yeah, no, he was in the other two. And then he'd go on to do Drag Me to Hell and Oz the Great and Powerful with Sam Raimi as well, for eventually passing away. And then lastly, a couple more final little cameos. We lose a lot of the cameos from the last movie into this one, but we have Bruce Campbell, not as Snooty Usher this time around, but as the Mater D.
Yes.
And Elizabeth Banks, of course, continuing as Miss Betty Brant. And anybody want to guess what Stan Lee's character cameo name is in this one?
I don't know his name, but he's the guy he's the guy who's like, looks like one person can make a difference. He's that guy.
Yeah. Yep. I don't even know if he has a name, but it's a very nice moment actually in the movie. It's one of my favorite moments probably.
So in the prior movies, he was like man at fair and man dodging debris or something like that. Here he is man in Times Square.
Nice.
So yes, that is his cameo on this one. All Out of Bubblegum are as we dive into the trivia here.
Here we go.
This is drawing from All Out of Bubblegum's count, but they once again did that bullshit of like, I'm gonna count Octavius and I'm gonna count Norman Osborn. I'm like, no,
they're already dead.
They died. I don't even count Uncle Ben in this one.
No, of course not.
But
He's
they
dead
did
2 movies ago.
Exactly. They counted Uncle Ben. They counted the mugger from the first one. So,
did they count Uncle Ben twice because he gets shot twice in this movie?
They
did they do that as well?
So they list him twice, but they do have a little asterisk that says, what is it?
Included directly above.
Yeah. Uncle Ben's death flashback is shown twice, but I'm only counting it once because Flynn's account was the most accurate. And I'm like, he didn't die in this movie, dumbass.
Get bent.
So this is a modified count from what All Out of Bubblegum has. So what do you guys think the body count in this one is? And also I will say, like, this is to one of Logan's always like things from that Bond show and stuff like that. This is probably the most like bullshitty, like you could probably make arguments against a bunch of these.
I love it. Okay, great. Okay,
I don't recall this being. This one just does not have the highest of body counts.
That's what they want you to think,
right?
Yeah, I will say I believe it is lower than the prior movies as well. So
I'm trying to think outside of like maybe people dying from like rubble and building stuff.
Harry dies.
Yeah.
Venom dies.
Yep.
Gwen doesn't die. MJ doesn't die. Harry or Peter doesn't die. Obviously, Captain Stacy doesn't die.
Trying to think.
So I don't. None of those are the 2 major characters that die. So now I'm trying to think who are. So I'll say I feel like I'm going to overshoot it, and I'm going to say 9 people die in the movie.
I'm going to probably say 7.
Okay.
Right.
So the count, and again, potentially bullshitty, but we'll talk through them at least.
We'll debate it. Yeah.
Total count is 11. We have, and I guess, so of those 11, how do I want to phrase this question? Which death is not from one of the villains?
Does Peter let somebody die?
Kills Venom, I guess, right? Like you could argue he kills Venom, right?
Yeah, Peter kills Venom because he throws the bomb that Venom goes in.
And like the little ring circle,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Pulls.
You I guess you could count it because he does kill Venom, and Venom is a separate kill than Eddie.
It's Eddie. Yeah, he kills Eddie Brock.
I'm just saying I'm combining Eddie Brock and Venom as one entity.
I hear that. I get that. I actually count them in my mind. I count them separate, but I didn't think about. But I guess either way, count it as one.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it. It's that's it. That is the 1 kill credited to Spider-Man.
Not by a Venom. Okay.
So yes, the first kill we have is during the sand truck sequence. Sandman throws a cop onto a car's windshield, breaking his back and killing him. He is not shown moving after being thrown.
Oh gosh, okay.
So this person counts it.
I'm ready. Here we go. Yeah. Let's go, Trevor. Hit me with them.
This guy definitely like makes the bullet points of like I'm expecting the arguments, so here's my rationale.
He's ready
like
for it. Yeah.
He has the like that was not me saying anything. That is the parenthetical on the body count. He is not shown moving after he threw him, so I'm counting it. Up
Get
next,
bent. I hate this guy.
Following or as part of the Spider-Man rally, there are 3 kills there, with sand punching 3 cops in the air, killing them on impact. 2 land on their heads and 1 landed on his back.
Okay.
Plus, they were punched pretty high. That is the parenthetical on that one. And then
this is my favorite game in the world.
Then we get all the way to the end of the film with the Menace news reports, where there are 5 kills shown. Sandman lifts a SWAT truck into the air, and it presumably crashes, killing 2 cops. 1 is heard screaming, and it's obvious the other one is pretty much dead. Venom pulls a cop into a vent and kills him off screen. Venom impales 1 cop with his claws, briefly seen. Venom kills the last cop off screen. The camera cuts away, but by the looks of it, he's pretty much fucked, is the parenthetical on that one. And then, Peter throws a pumpkin bomb at the symbiote. It then grabs Eddie, and he is accidentally blown up along with it. And Harry dies from Venom stabbing him with the glider. So there are our 11. Agreed.
There's 11.
Agreed, bullshitty. But
yeah,
none of this matters anyway.
There are probably like 7 that I could be like for sure, and then there are probably like 1 or 2 that I'm like maybe the guys who fell on their heads, that makes sense. But some of the other ones are definitely.
I don't count any of the cop. Like I count if 1 landed on their head. Yeah, okay, that guy's dead. I guess
the guy who got like impaled. Sure, I'm down with that. That's fine, right?
Venom's kills sound legit. Sandman's the cops in the SWAT truck.
Way shakier.
I'll give it.
Yeah,
and then the guy who lands on his head, I'll give that. I don't count the other ones.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's 3 kills I would already drop off on that.
Feel free to go submit your grievances to alloutabubblegum.com.
I will do it.
Continuing on with a segment we've done here, awards kind of talk. No notable wins for Spider-Man 3.
Nope.
Unsurprisingly, maybe. It was nominated for a BAFTA for Best Special Visual Effects.
Okay.
But no Oscar nominee or anything this time around.
I will say, to Spider-Man 3's real credit, I do think that like Spider-Man swinging through the city looks really good. I think they've gotten better and better with each of the 3 movies, sort of as you'd expect. So I do think, in terms of visual effects, it is nice in that regard. I'll give them some credit.
I was talking with Cameron about this a little bit last night. The credit I give them is, especially for like 2007, Sandman's effects are pretty good. Like, it is like
shout out too.
The sand effects are the comparison I made, where like Pixar was out here bragging about the amount of hair, like different hair things on Sully from Monsters Inc. at the time, kind of thing. So like the amount of grains of sand and the sand physics and stuff that are going on in the Sandman design. That's I think the showcase. But there are definitely some drawbacks to, or some cuts where like the stuff where it's like Harry and Peter fighting through the air. It's like, oh, neither of them look good. Like a lot of the like people swinging things just are not great.
I do think the first transition from him being all sand to person, which is like a seamless shot, that actually holds up really well. I think.
Yeah. I think a lot of those early. I think when he's all sand is when it's rough, but when it's the transitioning of him to sand, that tends to be really good. Like when he gets the train fight sequence in the subway, that fight sequence and how you kind of see how like the way sand kind of gets hits off of him, and the way like he goes concave to meet it and then like reshapes always looks really good. And I will also say the symbiote. Like as it moves around, the way that I think Sam Raimi's horror background really helps out with that. The way that it kind of like twists and moves itself around, I think is pretty stellar. For the effects of the time. Like it would be really easy to make it more watery than like more creaturey. And I will also say I've always loved the texture of the Venom symbiote in this film. I love the way that it's the coarseness of it in regards to like how it's not just like a thin like slime over it. It texturizes what it attaches to, and it creates a very like rougher texture on it. I think it's super evident when you see like that nest of webs that Venom puts out at the end of the movie. The way his webs have like Peter's webs look smooth and sleek, and Venom's looks rough and
There's a thick
coarse.
chunkiness to it.
Yeah, there's a heft to it.
Yeah.
And I've always liked that, and it adds sort of a like that same level of like a thin level of heft onto the already existing Spider-Man outfit that I still love. I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man outfit, the way that it's textured with the web design on it. So
other awards that they did not win. Kids' Choice Awards nominee was Kirsten Dunst for Favorite Female Movie Star. She lost to Jessica Alba from Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer.
This movie is not even the worst
superhero
movie of the year.
But that's something to be said.
But that's the thing, is that she lost to that, which I would probably argue is a worse movie than this one. But
yeah, no, 100%. Silver Surfer, worst movie. Jessica Alba though had like a
push. She was definitely like in a moment at the time.
It was the late aughts was Jessica Alba's moment.
Yeah. Moving over to the MTV Movie Awards, they were nominees for Best Villain for Topher Grace and Best Fight for Tobey Maguire and James Franco. Best Villain lost to Johnny Depp in Sweeney Todd. And
that's a weird MTV Movie Award.
Wait, Sweeney Todd came out this year too?
Yeah, or it came out like within the next year.
Probably
it came out
like
before the next
year, right?
the next year's like awards.
Gosh, that
the
was
weirder
wild.
one is a movie I guarantee you won't know existed or whatever. They lost Best Fight to Sean Ferris versus Cam Gigandit in Never Back Down.
Never Back Down. I do remember that.
All right, you are a weird person because I did not know that was a movie that existed.
That is a weird like UFC MMA fight movie that was
I
like
thought it was one of those dance movies.
No. Never Back Down. It's about like it's trash. It's utter garbage.
Yeah.
But it was hyped up at the time with like MMA and UFC bros who,
and it is an MTV Movie Award winning movie. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean it definitely is part of like that era of like high school films. I will never stop making fun of anybody who like watched it, including my friend Caleb. I roasted him. I was like we went over to his house once and he's just like watching it in his basement. I'm like, this is like the dumbest thing for you to be watching.
Last little run of nominees, as I alluded to earlier, it was nominated for Favorite Threequel, as well as the Favorite On-Screen Matchup for Kirsten Dunst and Tobey Maguire from the People's Choice Awards. It lost Favorite Threequel to Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Bourne Ultimatum was also nominated. And then it was that realization that also like Rush Hour 3 could have been in there. Because Rush Hour 3 was one of... So the favorite on-screen matchup winner was Brad Pitt and George Clooney for Ocean's 13.
That's a good one to be fair.
And Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker were also nominated for Rush Hour 3. So, yeah.
I probably think that At World's End is a better movie than this. I'd have to really think about that. I think maybe.
Right. Diving into some of the just general trivia stuff, while promoting the film on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, Thomas Hayden Church revealed that he'd broken 3 knuckles during the subway fight, where he swings to punch Spider-Man and ends up punching a chunk of wall away. Church said the effects crew had told him the brick in the middle was fake, while the upper and lower ones were real. Unfortunately, the foam brick had not actually been put in place yet, and when Sam Raimi yelled action, Church spun around and punched the real brick on the first take.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Dude, I love Thomas Hayden Church. I love him. He's such a great actor. He's so good.
Makes sense why he seems to not have that many good things to say about the filming of Spider-Man 3. Almost like they are breaking his hand.
Yeah. This would be the final film for Cliff Robertson before his death on September 10th, 2011, the age of 88. It was also the last film appearance of Hal Fishman, who plays the TV news anchor in the like breaking news sequence at the end, and he was also like a longtime KTLA news anchor. It
is crazy to me that Cliff Robertson was in his 80s for most of his trilogy, apparently.
Oh yeah,
because while I think he looks old, I would not say he looks like he's in his like mid 80s for these films. So that's shout to him.
Yeah. Yes, Hal Fishman passed away 3 months following Spider-Man 3's release date. It took 3 years to create the visual effects required to portray the Sandman's powers. To understand the dynamics of sand, various experiments were conducted with sand, launching sand at stuntmen, splashing the stuff around, and pouring it over ledges. Sand sculptors were also consulted for advice. This is probably my favorite little bit of trivia for this one. The song that Mary Jane performs on stage is from the Irving Berlin stage play Annie Get Your Gun, where I've gone in and editorialized where it is the middle of Act 1 duet and not a beyond slow and boring opening solo number. Manhattan Memories deserves those terrible reviews, but they weren't MJ's fault.
Nope.
That is just a god-awful opening to a musical. Whatever your musical is. It's just slow and boring AF. And finally, I have a rundown of some of the unproduced Spider-Man 4 stuff. It had, as I alluded to earlier, been originally slated for a May 6th, 2011 release date. The timeline of things would go on to be cancellation was announced January 2010 after Raimi walked away. And then shortly thereafter, it was announced that the franchise would be instead rebooted. And days later, they announced that Mark Webb, who had only directed 500 Days of Summer, would be directing The Amazing Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield would later be confirmed July 1st, 2010 as the new Spider-Man. So a lot of this stuff is drawing from a recent released book, Movies Go Forth, by Mark Edlitz, it's basically like an anthology of like fourth movies that either did or didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And for this one, he sat down with storyboard artist Jeffrey Henderson, who had worked on pre-production behind the scenes stuff for Spider-Man 4 before it got scrapped, including the Vulture as the big bad. Sam Raimi had approached Ben Kingsley, but reportedly would go on to cast John Malkovich, with prominent names like Kate Beckinsale, Anne Hathaway, and Angelina Jolie being rumored as contenders to play his daughter / Felicia Hardy / the Vulturess / Black Cat. Lots of differing reports on who was being cast for what there. But like Kate Beckinsale read with Tobey Maguire. Anne Hathaway was maybe approached, and Sam Raimi has said like if she had done it, would have been Felicia Hardy, Black Cat kind of thing. Which is interesting that then she goes on to be Catwoman in the Nolan trilogy. And then there was a rumor that a couple Bruce Campbell cameos for this one. One was the like punchline to a run of like a montage of Spider-Man catching villains like the Prowler and the Shocker and Stiltman and the Rhino. And Bruce Campbell would be kind of the Button coming in as Mysterio, taking the fishbowl helmet off his head, tying in all of his previous roles to being the same guy, and he's just kind of been like lurking in the wings for forever. Or alternatively, Bruce Campbell was going to be on a date with Aunt May. So, that could have also happened. And in 2009, Sony also mandated that the film would be in 3D following the success of Avatar, I believe the year earlier, and even pushed Raimi to have a meeting with James Cameron about the film, or about the 3D technology and stuff. So that was very much like Raimi was like, I don't know 3D. I don't want to know 3D. I don't want to do anything with 3D. So yeah, ultimately he walked from the project.
Although they did end up locking him into doing Drag Me to Hell in 3D, which he hated. So
that's what we've got for the trivia on this one. So yeah, how does this one hold up, everybody? Especially Logan, I think I want to kick off with you, given you were so high on Spider-Man 2 last week. Where do you think we go with Spider-Man 3 here?
Yeah, I mean, it's undoubtedly weaker, right? I think it's hard to follow up those kind of movies, right? It's really hard, in fact, right? I mean, the amount, you can pretty much go to any series or franchise you want. The number of times that a sequel to like an all-time great film in a series is followed up by another great one is way fewer than the amount of times it doesn't work, right? Whether it's one that I think is more successful, but still not as good, like Dark Knight Rises, following up Dark Knight, to stuff as diverse as like Quantum of Solace, following up Casino Royale, or Spectre, following up Skyfall. It's just hard to do, and Spider-Man 3 undoubtedly doesn't live up to what Spider-Man 2 did. But it fails in more fundamental ways, I think. I think Spider-Man 2, like me and Cameron each sort of raved about it for like 2 hours last week. I think it really nails Peter Parker and understands who that character is and what he represents both to New York City and to just like kids and people at large. And they really nailed that interpretation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man, right? And they really understood who he was and what made him tick and his hopes and dreams and ambitions, etc. I think they so misunderstand Peter Parker in this movie. It's like, it's really weird. Like, Peter Parker is kind of an asshole earlier than I thought he was in this movie. Like, I obviously knew he's gonna be like the asshole, but like it starts way earlier. Like the kiss me scene is so jarring. Like, it's like before he's like touched a symbiote and he's like, kiss me, my girlfriend's watching, kiss me, it'll be cute. And it's like, what is happening here? Like, there were so many weird beats that just don't work. And it's all before he's supposed to be a jerk, right? The movie does a lot of really, really bad, like, we don't want to take the time to like explain this, like, here's the thing done now, don't worry about it kind of thing. Especially with like Sam, and there's a lot of like setup that could have been done that just sort of was like, here you go, just go. Which is a disservice because I think Sandman is probably the best character in the movie. Certainly the one who I think has the most promise and potential. Eddie Brock is Eddie Brock. I like Topher Grace quite a bit as an actor. I don't know if he would have been within my top 20 picks for someone to play Eddie Brock in Venom. And I think he is given very little to work with. He's basically tasked to be an annoying guy, which he does well, but he's an annoying guy, right? You don't really want him on screen ever. The movie, I think, like really any superhero movie to a degree, is melodramatic, but I think they get the balance so wrong in this movie. It's so over the top, like soap opera-esque melodramatic. And yeah, I don't really like a lot of what they do with Peter in this movie. It's sort of the crux of the film. I despise the whole arc they have him and Mary Jane go on, especially because it doesn't make any sense largely. And I guess really my biggest critique is just that it just so misunderstands, I think, who Peter Parker and Spider-Man is. And to me, it's all the more bizarre because of how well I think they nailed him in the first movies, but in particular, obviously, Spider-Man 2, which I think is great. Because to me, even like The Dark Knight Rises, while it is weaker than The Dark Knight, I think they still understand Batman in the movie. I don't necessarily think he's the issue with that movie. I still think they understand that character well. Whereas here, I think they just sort of really flop on it. And yeah, are there too many villains? Of course there are, but like, I think
that is a key element of the issue, though, is like that too many villains also spills into the time to devote to Peter and Mary Jane. And so like everybody suffers from there being too many villains in this one.
I think I'd be curious to know y'all's thoughts as well, but it feels the sloppiest in a lot of ways, I think, both in terms of the writing, both in terms of just sort of like, I think how it was put together as a film. It just feels the sloppiest out of the three to me, and sort of the least like they had a clear plan to go from A to B. And a lot of that, obviously is behind the scenes stuff of like them sort of adding on more pieces to the part of it, but like it just feels messy in a way the other two didn't, I think.
Yeah, indeed. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff of like, obviously I didn't include it in the trivia because I think it's just so well known as like Raimi didn't want to do Venom, but like Sony and in particular Avi Arad very much were like, Venom sells, you got to put Venom in this movie. Like he has an international audience that will make this movie lots of money. Sadly, was right, and we've even continued seeing that with the just awful Venom movies that we've gotten since.
Yep.
So yeah, annoyingly, very popular character. Don't know why.
I am. That to me seems like a victory that, in the short term, technically was true. The movie made a lot of money, but in the long term, I mean, like, it killed this trilogy off, right? Like, they didn't get another movie with these characters, and Amazing Spider-Man 2 or Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 didn't do as good as, you know, these movies were doing, right? So I mean, like, ultimately, I don't know how. I mean, yeah, I'd be curious to know if they would have done it again, right, with hindsight. But
yeah, I mean, they still make crap tons of money, so
Right.
like, I don't think anybody's like, I don't think anybody who's out there making money off of this cares that, like, this one is, you know, the much
bad
maligned bad one, because they made money off of it. So like, they got what they wanted out of it. They don't, like, it's the obviously it's the debate that's going on right now with SAG and the writers versus the movie producers. Like, producers are in it for the money, everybody else is in it for the creativity. That's the general system. Yeah. Cam, what are your thoughts on this one?
I was actually pleasantly surprised to feel like I did not hate this movie as much as I remember hating it.
Cam's gonna be the hottest on it.
I might be. I will say there's things about this film that I think are really good. I think a lot of the visual effects are like some of the best that we've seen. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a good, the opening of this movie up until the Flint Mark
Spider-Man parade.
The Spider-Man trade-off. Up until that point, I really enjoy this movie. When it's focused on Peter dealing with thinking that he had closed that chapter of his life and it rearing its ugly head. I appreciate the complication of Flint Marko as somebody who's just like in a really rough spot and making all the wrong decisions and trusting all the wrong people. I like that. I like a lot of that. I think that, and also I like the, let me rephrase that. I really enjoy it up until James Franco, Harry Osborn has the amnesia. Up until that point,
lazy. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Up until that point, I think that the momentum of having Sandman and Young Goblin New Goblin works well for me. One, the New Goblin storyline is from the comic books. It's a really great comic book storyline that is still one of my favorites. Mm-hmm. And it does such a great job of bringing a lot of the, like, it's supposed to be the tragic payoff to Harry Osborn and Peter Parker's friendship and their story and the inevitability of that unfortunate conclusion that ends up coming towards it. I like the complications that it is about, that there's a lot of things going on with, like, Peter's life. I don't like a lot of, like, the Peter in this movie when it comes to, like, how he's embraced being Spider-Man and, like, forgetting lessons that he learned in the last two movies almost entirely. Yeah. And it's really rough. I like Bryce Dallas Howard as Gwen Stacy. I just don't like Gwen Stacy in this story.
Yeah. I don't even know if you're supposed to. It's such a weird, like, character that they create here.
The problem is that she doesn't really have a place because there's no way she's beating MJ.
Right.
There's no way there's never a moment of, there's no romantic tension or palpitation between Peter and Gwen. And so she's really just like an ancillary plot device used to spurn jealousy from MJ. Be essentially a plot tool for Peter at different points, whether it's the look how hot Spider-Man is at the rally, or look how look how well I'm doing now that like we're not together anymore, MJ, type thing. Like, how dare you like betray me, thing like that. Like that, she is really just used for plot hooks and tools. All that being said, I think the beginning of this movie, it starts off really strong. I really like where it's going with things about like, what does this next phase of Spider-Man and Peter Parker and MJ's life look like? What are the kind of consequences and conclusions of kind of Peter not being honest with Harry about what happened to his father, leading Harry to spend years like obsessing over a false narrative that he has let him believe because he didn't tell him that he was Spider-Man. And also absolute bullshit from the butler at the end. Like, that is still one of my most hated moments of any film ever. Of, you have watched this young man tear himself apart for the better part of like 5 years, and you are now at this moment, after he's been permanently scarred for life with those also not great prosthetic burns that just doesn't look good at all. I don't understand how that's supposed to even work. It looks super weird, and I've always hated it. That being said, this film is like, it's not good. It's bad in a lot of places. It is not a good film. It's not the worst superhero film of the year that it came out.
I 100%. Yeah, I agree
I
with
also
that too.
don't think it's the worst Spider-Man film. I might get some hate on that one.
I maybe agree, actually.
Yeah, but you also don't like our point of view about the worst Spider-Man movies probably aren't the same. That being,
I think they probably are.
They might be.
You're just in the camp with somebody you don't want to be in the camp with. Is what you just.
No, if we are in the same camp, I'm fine being in that camp with you on that. Yeah. I like the Tom Holland. I like all three of the Tom Holland movies. But like, so those are not in my bottoms. Is what I'm trying to say. The thing about this is, and this is really where a crux of what I don't like about it is, Venom is introduced so late as a villain, and it just doesn't pay off at all. Eddie Brock is not that interesting of a character as a counter to Peter. He is not like, shout out to Topher Grace absolutely nailing that line in the church of like, I want you to kill Peter Parker.
Oh my
Phenomenal
God.
delivery on it.
Yeah,
so good. Like, there's a lot there, but I mean, outside of that, there's really nothing like remarkable about Topher. I like Topher Grace. Topher Grace is a pretty competent actor. Watching him in Predator is he is a tour de force, like that, a very reserved tour de force in that movie. The turn at the end is phenomenal because of it. But yeah, no, he doesn't do Venom well. Venom's not done well. I don't think Venom's ever been done well in anything outside of the cartoon
animated
in the 90s and the comic books. Venom's a fascinating and interesting character. Eddie Brock is a greatly layered character with a lot of layers around insecurities and conflicts and questions about masculinity, and a lot of stuff is built up around Eddie Brock as a character in the comic books that is never done well outside of it. It's rough in a lot of ways, but it's not a good movie, and it makes me sad. But also, I'm really grateful we never got a fourth one, because I don't think that they could have swung me back around to be hot on a fourth movie.
So I actually think I'm the hottest on this movie. In comparison, especially because
we talked about it last night, and I'll agree with your statement you're going to be making. So.
I all of the things I didn't like about the last movie, not really issues in this one, especially the cringe humor beats that we had in the last movie. There aren't any of those long drawn out overplayed cringe humor beats. They're replaced by cringe dance sequences and stuff like that.
I made an interesting comment to you when we were talking the other night about in Spider-Man 2, the raindrops keep dropping on my head, kind of skip dance sequence that he does down the street that he trips and has to put on his glasses. That's the same that's the same street where he does his finger pointing, goes in for the suit, does the dance, Like
Yeah.
all that is in the same section. It's a callback to a very subtle scene in the second film.
I mean,
But
I think there's an element of that is like a direct callback, but they're like, I mean,
it's a very
the
different
most
scene.
iconic elements of that, of like him going into the store and coming out in the suit, like that's not
No,
a reference to anything.
No,
there.
I
It's
was
like,
pointing out this
in the last movie, it's him like walking down like with a lot of students around. It's like a courtyard kind of thing. Here it is like a city street. So I don't like, and again, because I just rewatched it right before we started recording, I don't know if it is like if there are direct side by side comparisons being made there. But all that said, like, yeah, this movie's bad.
Yeah,
but it's funny. I'm laughing at this movie. I'm having a better time. Not a better time than the last movie. I won't go that far. But like I'm having a better time than probably both of you are, who were like wanting something like much better out of this movie. Than that. Like, yeah, I watched this. I was like, I think it's also obviously like I know to expect that I'm going to have a bad time in going into this one. But yeah, like this is camp. And this is the most camp of any of the Raimi stuff, but that's what people are like. Oh, I love the camp that Sam Raimi brings to things. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's like the commitment that Tobey Maguire has to being douchey bully Maguire kind of character, and the dance, and for as long as the dance goes on, it's like he was clearly in on some joke that that him and Raimi had or something, like and so yeah, like I found myself like enjoying that. I don't think Venom is ever a good character, even in the cartoons and comics and stuff like that. Venom is a silhouette and a monster more than he is a character. He is a visceral and violent antagonist to Spider-Man that you want to see Spider-Man beat up, and because it's like, a symbiote alien creature kind of thing, you don't feel really bad about Spider-Man beating him up or anything like that, compared to, more like personal relationships that he has with a lot of his characters. So like, I'm fine with that. Even in this one, it being like Eddie Brock is very much being set up as like a parallel to Peter. I like Topher Grace in this. I get like he's very. There were a lot of people in this movie where I was like, yeah, he knows what movie he's in. It's not a good movie, but he knows that's what he's in.
Okay.
And like I felt that about Topher Grace. I think like honestly, as much as I like him in the movie, Thomas Hayden Church is like the odd man out, because he's like he is the John Malkovich, had he come and done Vulture, is absolutely that like classic theater trained actor that Willem Dafoe, that Alfred Molina were, that like he has like the acting chops to do the thing. And I think like as much he isn't given much to do as Flint Marko, because everybody else is fighting him for time. So like all we really get from him is that like scene where he goes to see his daughter and he gets like chastised by his ex-wife or whatever. And that's like the character growth we get from this character. The retconning of Uncle Ben will forever be one of the dumbest and worst decisions about this movie.
Yep.
And so like at this point, I just laugh at it. Not laughing with it. Like I think it is stupid, and I'm having a fun time thinking how stupid it is. And yeah, like it like just how absolutely absurd it is. Like, yeah, we didn't know, like we found out, it was probably this other guy, and we haven't told the family of the victim about this for years, until he broke out of prison. Because we're also incompetent at that front, and then the scientists that are also incompetent at their jobs that let him,
it's a bird.
It's probably a bird that is the How It Should Have Ended series, animated series on YouTube, is one of my ultimate favorites, and
they nail it. They nail it.
This was one of their very, very early ones, and actually I think they always do pretty much like for their Spider-Man movies, they do a lot of like, let's bring in the audience kind of for feedback and jokes on those things. And yeah, like they just rip this one apart of like, hey, maybe it's not a bird, so maybe you should check.
Yeah,
before we turn a guy into superpowers or something. And then obviously like they do the same kind of thing of like when it's, you know, eels in Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Jamie Foxx's character. But yeah, it's like it's ridiculously stupid that he just stumbles into this sand experiment that who knows what the hell that was supposed to be doing anyway.
Yeah, again, just lazy, right?
Yeah. So yeah, like the one thing I will say, like I think had they not immediately thrown all that goodwill away with, okay, we're going to give him amnesia to draw out this plot. Like, I love the fact that this is a 3-movie payoff to Harry's arc.
Absolutely,
to the arc between Harry and Peter. And yeah, like I obviously I like it way more in like idea than execution. But the idea that we get like at the beginning of this movie, absolutely great. Of like, all right, he's finally making his move and he's trouncing Peter because Peter didn't see it coming. Admittedly, that's also where some of the worst CG in this movie is, of just like Tobey Maguire in a suit, CGified, flying through, not great stuff. But yeah, like I love the personal nature of that fight way more than the forced, all right, we've got to give Pete a reason to hate Flint Marko, so we're gonna retcon that like, oh, Flint's actually the one who killed Ben Parker, and Pete's going to find that information out after he's already had a run-in with Sandman, so now he's going to be immediately extra angry, even though a key element of the last 2 movies has been letting that go. And so yeah, the fact that he just falls right back into rage and stuff like that, it's absolutely dumb.
And that's before he even gets the aggressive suit.
Yeah,
so that's exactly right.
Yeah. So much of this, yeah, absolutely. Like Logan said, like he's already a terrible character well before the symbiote gets to him. I to another point that was brought up earlier, I mean, like I think sadly the characterization of Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane is often just pitting them against one another for the sake of advancing Peter's plot. So the fact that that's pretty much all Gwen Stacy is in this movie isn't like particularly a surprise. I think it does serve that purpose, not for Peter so much as for Mary Jane, in terms of like Mary Jane is insecure after being in a terrible Broadway show and basically getting fired from it, and in
the worst way possible.
Bullshit, way possible, that like very much makes the old theater person in me like angry at their stage manager and production manager.
Also, like with ongoing with the SAG-AFTRA strike and everything going on too. It's different unions and stuff too, different politics, but still.
But yes, so like she's already down on her luck and obviously not communicating that with Peter, and so that leads to their breakdown in communication. But because she's already coming from a place of that kind of vulnerability, when a pretty Bryce Dallas Howard shows up and, you know, smiles at Peter and Peter smiles back, she immediately sees a sense of jealousy there. Why is this beautiful girl like that is your lab partner? Why have you never mentioned her before? Kind of like
why are you kissing her?
Right. I mean, that's before the kiss. It absolutely goes into overdrive after the kiss kind of thing. But
and rightfully so, also because that's their kiss.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Like she's at that point, I was like, they're really pushing this jealousy angle, and then the kiss happens, and I was like, nope, girl, I'm with you.
Yeah,
there is something going on here, even though I know mentally there's not anything going on. Emotionally, I'm there with MJ.
Yeah, it's even crazy because Peter literally has the ring to propose to, and he's like, what if I just kiss another girl right now? That could possibly be wrong about that. And it's like, what are you talking? It's such oh man, it's just crazy that they thought that'd be like a normal thing Peter Parker would do.
Yep. But all the time I'm just like, I've never been a huge fan of Tobey Maguire, so Tobey being stupid in this movie, I'm just getting my chuckles in on it. I think the movie, for as badly as it serves MJ, at least tries to serve her like and give her more than I think the last couple movies have done. Like she has her own arc, and admittedly, she's a little bit too much of the pawn of Harry, with the whole like I'm yeah, like a obviously we're already breaking up, like we've not been on the same wavelength this entire movie, but now I'm doing it because somebody's threatening my life as well, and Peter still being like, I was going to propose to you kind of thing, being like in what world have you been doing anything right where she would have said yes?
Yep.
And then yeah, the fact that he just like spirals out from there into just absolute goofy, absurd Bully Maguire, like with the emo hair and stuff. Like to a degree, there is an element there of like if he could like funnel that to the right people, like J. Jonah Jameson, to get the raise that he gets and kind of the like even the like the confidence and the admiration he gets from like Betty in that moment, Betty Brant, is like oh, that's like a fun dynamic, especially if he's if he and MJ are breaking up. Okay, Peter can like have a rebound or something like that. But yeah, the fact that like no, he just is that to everybody, and yeah, just turns him into like a bigger dick than he's already been this entire movie. It's like, this is just silly. Like action wise, I think we already touched on like the Sandman fight in the subway, probably the most interesting of the fights, because other than that, it is a lot of like CG stuff, and the the personal connection of that first Harry Peter fight, and also again, like going back to Peter's a dick from the jump of this movie, like the look of like relief and joy from his best friend getting amnesia, so he doesn't have to confront the conversations that he should be having.
Maybe letting this be a fresh start of being like, hey, listen, some stuff has happened. I'm going to break it down for you, but please understand like where I'm coming from on this, and this is a difficult thing. And it's like, nope, we're good.
Yeah. So yeah, like, oh, let's play basketball in your giant manor. Ha 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 ha. Just absolute stupid buffoonery. But yes, that is ultimately like the dumbest beat of that whole storyline is the butler finally coming out of nowhere to be like again, I pulled it in as like trivia of like he's Bill Paxton's father. Terrible performance. And rest in peace to the guy, but like he's not a good actor, so I don't know why Sam Raimi was like so obsessed with giving him this very dramatic thing in the dumbest way possible. But yeah, I ultimately like I walk away from this movie like, yeah, that's dumb and there's a lot of bad in this, but like I laughed plenty. Like, or if not like laughed, I like chuckled and had like a dumb like Schadenfreude grin on my face kind of thing of like people that think the Sam Raimi movies are great. What silly people.
But see, like I don't know, like I disagree. I don't know, but like obviously I disagree because I think Spider-Man 2 is so good and Spider-Man 1 is good. But like I also think that like that's sort of a bad equivalency because like one movie in a trilogy doesn't make the entire trilogy right and bad when you make it right and like that kind of stuff. But like the two bigger, since we're doing this, since the two bigger nitpicky things I have are, first off, what a weird idea it is to make really the only thing that we hear the reviewers complain about Mary Jane is that her voice isn't loud enough when they seat us from Peter's perspective in the front row where she's plenty loud enough. And it's like, well, all I know is that she is loud enough for me to hear fine. I don't know that she wouldn't be loud enough for anyone else to hear fine. There's no other negative review about her. It seems weird that that would be enough for all of them to complain about and then fire her for that after one performance and get no feedback. Like, just like somebody, it's such a weird, like, why that as like the thing that's going to get her canned? Like such a weirdly particular critique. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I agree with Trevor in the sense that like I like the idea of having the kind of culmination of Peter and Harry's 3-movie arc happen here and happen at the beginning of the movie. Like I actually think it would have been really kind of brave in some ways to like wrap up the Harry and Peter stuff like in the first act and have it finish there and then have like the entire last 2/3 of the movie be just Peter and Sandman kind of thing. and like have the Harry Peter stuff resolved. Like that'd have been like really cool. Like, oh, like you think it's gonna be the main thing? We're getting it done early in a really cool way. It's done. They obviously don't commit to that in the kind of the shittiest way possible. But I actually kind of liked it too. Like it happens so quick. It's so sudden, like you said, Trev. And I think a lot of these beats work. I think it's just like this screams to me of like a movie that, like how it should have ended is just gonna have a field day with, right? Like there's so many weird things like what, like even watching it again, and it's a scene that like the minute I saw it, I was like, I know exactly what's gonna happen, and I know I'm gonna be ignored. It's probably just a bird. Fucking nuke the sand is still just like, what are we like? Do you have anything in your machine to tell you how heavy it is? What kind of bird is 180 pounds? Like, what are you talking about? Like, and like, what is A?
Yeah,
B?
It's big enough to fire your sensors off, but you think it's small enough to just be a bird.
Yeah, and when the lady goes, it's like there's a pretty large mass that's entered it, like that's displaced the stuff, like and they like
But even within that, the dude's like, it's probably a bird, it'll fly away. But what if it doesn't? Would you not think that'd be something that would corrupt your experiment? And what if it's something that is bigger than a bird and is in this? And then also, what was the experiment for in general? Like, even if there had been nothing there, like, what was the purpose of the experiment? Like, just to turn sand into a sentient being? Like, what are they going for here, right? Like, it's such a weird, like, what are they doing? And then, like, I think
it came off as like a particle collider that they were testing with like sand particles.
Yeah.
And that makes sense with like what happens to Flint Marko, but it really is a question of like any scientist worth a lick of salt would have seen an offsetting in their experiment and go, we have to stop everything and reset the experiment because we're not going to get reliable results this way.
I mean, but that's the thing, guys. It's not a experiment by like scientists, it's an experiment by a screenwriter because they need to turn this guy into a sand-powered guy.
Right, and that's the problem, is that like, to me, like, this is the movie that has like, it's got so many shortcuts in it, right, to get to these kind of things, right? Like Trevor said it too, and I like Sandman in the movie, but like they were like, how can we make Sandman sort of like, Norman, and definitely like Doc Ock, like a sympathetic character that you can really feel for. What's that? He's got a sick and dying kid? Cool. Let's put that in the first 1 minute of his introduction to the movie here. Here we go. Do we need to see that kid ever again? Not really. Don't worry about it.
She'll be in a locket.
Yeah, but she'll be in a locket. Don't worry about it.
A Sandman becomes a sentient sand monster? Cool. He is just sand, doesn't know how to build himself. Within a minute of being sand, he knows how to dissolve himself back into completely human form. Don't worry about it. It's fine. He figured it out on the fly here, right? Like there are so many like things they're just like, yeah, don't worry about that.
It's like take that, Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like this character needs to be in the movie right now. We don't need him anymore. Cool. Sandman got flushed down the drain. Don't worry about him for a whole act. He'll be back at the end here, right? And it's like they're doing a whole bunch of that kind of stuff, and like
we need Venom and Sandman to get together. Yeah. All right, Venom's just gonna find him in an alley.
Yep.
Yeah, like. There's so many of those kind of beats throughout the movie, right? And to me, like, it is very unlike Spider-Man 1 and 2 in that way, right? Like, I think Spider-Man 1 and 2, like, especially Spider-Man 2, like, I think they really thread and lay the seed to a lot of stuff that they're going to build throughout that movie. And here it's just sort of like, we need to do these things now. Let's go. Like, Harry's got amnesia because we're not going to have him be a bad guy for 2/3 of this movie again. And, like, yeah, it's a lot of that. Like, I think... I sort of understand where you're coming from, Trevor, in the sense of like, it's a movie that's like so bad you can enjoy it, right? Like it's a Rocky Horror Picture Show kind of thing.
It is Diamonds Are Forever for me. Yeah, it's absolutely that.
The issue for me is that I think look, Diamonds Are Forever is the campiest James Bond movie, probably by a pretty considerable margin, and that's saying something. But I think no one who was a part of that movie really was not like, this is a campy movie. Like, they all were like, Sean Connery's doing very flamboyant camp gestures throughout. Mr. Witt and Mr. Kidd are fucking having an Oscar-winning performance throughout that movie, just having the ball of their lives. Charles Gray's Blofeld, the most flamboyant, right? It's great. Like they all knew, like they're making basically like a 70s B movie comedy. Like it's a mad, 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 mad world, right? Like they were very much in on it.
Oh, the movie takes place in Vegas? All right, yeah, let's just everybody be a showgirl.
Yep.
Exactly, right? Versus here, it's not that, right? Like the line we came up with from Dumb to Forever was like, oh, they knew what kind of movie they were in. Versus here, it's like, I feel like 2 of the cast knew what kind of movie they were in, and the rest were told they were in like a different movie each. And so you get these like weird like range of performances, right? Where like, you know, Kirsten Dunst and Mary Jane is in a whole other movie from Tobey Maguire versus from freaking James Franco, and Thomas Hayden Church is like he's in Sideways still. And like it makes like this really, and Topher Grace just doing his whole own thing. And like it makes this really odd hodgepodge of things. And like I sort of don't feel like they know what kind of movie they're in. Like maybe Topher does agree because he's so over the top in the church scene, right? And like in a really great way.
Well,
like
he's not even
said, like,
over the top. My favorite part about that is it's so subdued and he's so casual about like, God, I'm really down right now. I need you to kill Peter Parker.
He comes in with the energy of like, I know I'm the slimiest guy in this movie.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just embrace that.
Eat that shit up.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
Hi, Captain Stacy. That's Gwen. Your daughter. I saw her last night. We're dating, sort of.
Yeah.
Then and like even that is like the whole like there's a whole bunch of like seemingly cut scenes and stuff like that of you know, what was their actual relationship? Was it like, was he just kind of like a, you know, single white femaling her kind of vibes or whatever?
Yeah, because there's definitely like a moment where they're like, we just had like dinner or whatever.
We had coffee.
We
had coffee, but it was because he frames it like they had sex and like it was the most incredible night of my life. We had coffee.
I mean, but like also like, so tie that all the way around to the end where he's like,
you stole my girl.
No, I've got my spider sense tingling, if you know what I mean, kind of thing. When talking about Mary Jane, it's like, hey, like, the fuck does he know about spider sense? Like, of course it's a like meta breaking the fourth wall, stupid ass line, but it's like, fucking whatever. Like, he said the thing. Fine.
Leonardo DiCaprio gif, right?
He's supposed to be the bad guy, and he knew. Like, one of the things I saw in the trivia is like he, you know, based his like portrayal of Eddie Brock on like an addict and kind of like, you know, that kind of vibe to it. It's like, I see that. I get that. Yeah. I get those vibes of like, he knows he's not coming into this to be like a hero or an anti-hero kind of thing. He's not.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to make the Venom
right?
spin-off with his character and his version of Eddie Brock, where he's going to go save a city or anything like that. So it's like, he's here to be the bad guy. He's here to be a dick. He's here to try and like make Spider-Man look bad and you know, get into J. Jonah Jameson's good graces doing so. And then, you know, he like does it the shortcut way. And so he loses everything and goes to a church and begs for Peter Parker to be killed. And that just so happens to be the church that Peter Parker is using to get rid of Venom.
I do love that whole church scene is like sort of great on like so many different like levels and meta levels and everything. But like the idea of like Eddie Brock being like, man, I've got caught out for being an asshole. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to church. It's like, okay, you're on a maybe okay path to fire. And I'm going to pray to God in front of the altar to Jesus for him to fucking murder someone. Is like, okay, you went off the rails at the end there again. I'm not going to lie to you, Eddie. It's maybe not the route I'd have gone.
Yeah, that's not really what this God does anymore.
It's so good.
That's
not for a couple thousand years.
But that's the whole point of Eddie Brock, though, is that's the humor around that entire scene. And I think you're right. I think there is a level of he's confident about what he knows, what role he's coming into, and I think he nails it. With what Venom is in this film, I think you're right. I think he does like hit it, like not knock it out of the park, but he nails the role that he's coming into play. But it's just like, like I said earlier, there's been no great version of Venom outside of the 90s animated series and the comic books. I stand by that. There's no, whether it's the really awful Venom movies or it's Eddie Brock here. Eddie Brock is such a tacked on character and so two-dimensional. But that's what he's supposed to be, because he's added on literally the third act. There's there's not a lot of really great payoff moments that I think the first third of this movie kind of teases and promises. And because of that, it suffers from a lot, like a very middling, like a very middle, and then a very like lackluster end, I guess. But yeah, I honestly, like I said, I don't think this is as bad as I remember it being. I think that there's a lot of things now looking back at it. I think that the camp works for it, where at the time it didn't work for me. And when I watched this movie like 10 or 12 years ago, it didn't work for me then either. But like there is a lot of that aspect of the kind of schlockiness that this trilogy owns so well that I think is still carried throughout this film that makes it good. So
we get a whole sequence of Harry Osborn making an omelet with MJ, you guys, while they dance to Twist and Shout, I think.
Twist and Shout, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this like that's a whole other sequence. It just feels like it is pulled from a very different movie.
Yep. The anything that has to do with Harry's amnesia, I'm not a fan of in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
Although it leads us to one of my favorite scenes in the entire film, which is the pie shop scene.
Yeah.
Gosh, just to this day, I still like love how is the pie? So good. Yeah. And it's like, I love that. And then the turnaround, Peter looking back, Harry winking, Peter getting like upset, and then like the truck goes by, and then Harry's just gone.
Yeah, Harry just disappears.
Yeah,
he has magic powers apparently.
It's so dumb.
And the fact that like Peter leaves it at that.
Yeah,
like at best, Harry just took advantage of that bus being and like hid. Like he doesn't have superpowers apart from like the goblin strength or whatever. So like Peter could have just been like, oh shit, he's not amnesiac anymore. I'm gonna go confront him about this now, and just like walked right back in. But no, he just leaves. Yeah. Very, very dumb stuff.
Where did Harry go? He went to the cashier to pay his check. That's where he went.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, it's such a silly, dumb movie.
It is.
Again, going back to like Peter being a dick even before all the Venom stuff, like him being so oblivious to Mary Jane's like cries for help and stuff.
Yep.
During and always making it about himself and stuff like that. It's like, oh my God, yeah, you really are just a bad character. Like, why would MJ even love you at all? What's like, oh God, it's
because he was different for the first two movies.
The worst.
It's such a weird, yeah.
He goes from being totally and completely in love with MJ to treating their relationship in a very fanciful manner. Even though the plot of the movie is telling him that he should be taking it more seriously.
Right.
He is Peter acts in contrary to how Peter in the previous two movies would be acting in these scenarios. And it's done for a lot of
that's a really good way to
dick
put it.
moves and comedic effect. In a lot of ways. It's just, it's rough. It's rough.
I don't know why, but when he tips off the maitre d', he's like, oh, also could you have them come play this song? I forgot that it's the song she that she sings. That she sings in her play that she just got fired from. Yeah, yes. I was fully expecting it to be Spider-Man because he's such a narcissist at that moment. I was fully again, because they're like, oh yes, it's one of our favorites. I was like, oh, people probably want them to play that Spider-Man song that random violinist in the last movie was playing all the time. So when it ends up being the boring ass song, again, as you pointed out, from a show that at best has been running for a week, it's not it. Yeah, it's so how in the hell is it one of our favorites kind of thing? It's this. None of this makes sense. This is all so contrived and stupid.
The only good thing about that scene is Bruce Campbell is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
As the maitre d', he is phenomenal.
Standard. Yeah.
Shout out to him being great. I love him.
So yeah, lots of absolutely stupid stuff in this movie. But I was like, whatever. I'm having a fine time. It was not it was nowhere near the anger and venom, pun intended, that I had when watching the most of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies that we did. So this was it's whatever. There's like I knew I wasn't coming in expecting King Lear or anything like that, so it's fine. It's whatever.
King Lear's good.
All right. So let's dive into
Let's rank 'em.
our report card.
That's good.
We're grade from A+ to F. I'm curious where you guys fall on this one. Where do you want to throw this? We'll start with you, Cameron.
This is like a C- for me.
Okay.
Like I said, I think the first third of this movie is, up until Harry's amnesia, is really, really strong in a lot of ways. There's a lot of stuff going, there's a lot of things going on that I think make it really, really good and a great momentum to start that film off. That point where I literally forget how much I dislike the last 2/3 of this movie with how hyped up I get for the first third. Yeah, I love most of the performances in the movie, even though this is my least favorite time of him as Peter Parker. I still like Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker a whole lot, even though he's not the same character in this movie. But I will also say I will always have a very special spot in my heart for Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson. I think that she brought a lot of character and class to a character that could have easily just been a ancillary side piece. The fact that she really runs this trilogy as a kind of co-star and co-lead with Tobey Maguire, I think really speaks to her as an actress and speaks to her capability in really making a push and emphasis on Mary Jane having development and plot in these films. So massive shout out to her. Love her dearly.
Yeah, I wish she didn't turn into damsel in distress every third act.
That's a problem.
That's a problem of just movies of the era and stuff. There was a moment that I'd forgotten about in the last movie that I mentioned where like she grabs a thing and is gonna like go after Doc Ock, and then one of the arms just whacks her out. And I was like, oh, if that movie were made now, like she would get a moment of like she helps save the day, much like Aunt May did earlier in the film, kind of.
Oh, that's another person I want to give a massive shout out to.
Oh yeah,
just Aunt May. I love her so much. I'm trying to recall her name.
Rosemary Harris.
Rosemary Harris.
She is so amazing. I think still defines that role, like the classic archetype of Aunt May still. And I think that until we get to like the Holland trilogy, you don't see a real big like turn from that. I love and adore her growth in these three movies as well, going from quiet, suburb, like elderly lady to somebody who is like in charge and living her life. Like she goes through grief, mourns, and grows from it. And I think that her very subtle, very background character development is underappreciated in these movies. So,
Logan, what do you want to give this A+ to F?
Yeah. I mean, first off, I want to echo a lot of Cameron's sentiments, right? I think the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is sort of unique, really among superhero trilogies or stories in general, in terms of like it having a core trio of kind of main characters throughout it, right? Like it just doesn't, stories don't really do that, right? I mean, The Dark Knight doesn't do it, right? The Holland one doesn't do it in the same way. Obviously, Andrew Garfield one is in the trilogy, but doesn't do it in the same way. None of the Avengers movies do it in the same way. Like, I think, really...
I would argue the Tom Holland ones have Zendaya, Ned, or MJ, Ned, and Peter.
I think, to me, that's different because it's not... I mean, Cameron might say the same thing I'm going to say, but in terms of like that dynamic between Peter and Harry being sort of this kind of tragic dynamic to it, right?
I would say that I think the trio setup isn't established until the end of Far From Home. Homecoming.
MJ is definitely like a third. She's not like in the squad with them, but I would say Mary Jane in the first movie isn't like. I mean, she doesn't even really know who Peter is at the beginning of the first movie. Like he's the next door neighbor kind of thing. Yeah. But like she doesn't like she is nice enough to him because she's a nice person to be like, hey, like let's wait for the guy who's trying to run by on the bus. But like he's waving at her in the first movie, and she like waves at the friends that she actually has behind him, and all this. Like she
knows who he is.
I don't think of her. I don't think of them as a trio in that movie either.
No, and I think the thing is that the trio that we get at the end of Homecoming and going into Far From Home does feel like a squad, whereas these are 3 leads in a film.
Right, I like that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's because they're never supposed to be set up that way either in these films.
Anyway, back to Logan's Green.
Anyways, yeah, but I like that element of them and kind of you carry forward through it in these 3 films. I 100% agree. Rosemary Harris is fantastic throughout these films and sort of gets more moments to shine than I remember her getting throughout the 3 films that I really enjoy. Ultimately, for me, the movie's just sort of a mess. I mean, it's just sort of a disaster, right? I mean, Cameron, it seems like, likes the first act a lot. Trevor got to kind of have a Rocky Horror Picture Show experience with it. For me, there's not really a single point in the movie that I really enjoyed. In fact, I think it's probably one of the roughest, most cringy, I desperately want to look away movies in the superhero canon for me because I think of how much I care about the characters. I mean, it's like a D for me, right? I think it fails in almost every front. It has the benefit of not being the worst superhero movie this year. It lucked out to come out in a weak year for movies. But on the whole, I think it's just such a miss. A lot of times we have these kind of movies that I think really stumble for me. I will often say I can at least sort of applaud its ambition and what it was trying to do. But even here, like, I don't even necessarily know what it was trying to do. It's such a kind of messy, confused, jumbled up movie that was trying to tell like 4 different stories at once. That I view it less as an ambitious movie and more just kind of a mess of one. So it's a D. It's the weakest of the trilogy for me. And honestly, in hindsight, I probably would say it's the weakest of all the Spider-Man movies for me because there are moments that I at least really like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, despite how much that movie suffers, I think, from similar issues. Whereas here, there's not really anything I like. And I think it's so utterly misunderstands Peter Parker and Spider-Man. But having said that, I still think Tobey Maguire is fantastic, and I still think, like Cameron said, this is a trilogy that is so important to me, I think, in terms of just like having me fall in love with and really solidify my love for like this character and these characters, right? And even to this day, when I think of Spider-Man or Mary Jane or Green Goblin or Doc Ock or Aunt May, these are the people that I immediately think of first and foremost, right? Like these are the images of all those characters to me, because I think the actors and the performances throughout are really good, even if the story lets them down in this movie. So I'd give it a D.
Yeah, it's a C for me. It's still not great, but
right. None of us. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it's very much like this is a very like it is especially I think disappointing for what you would want from a Spider-Man, especially as you kind of both of you kind of touched on, like Spider-Man 2 being so high on your lists and stuff like that, and yeah, especially I feel bad for you, Logan, in that like you went from like Spider-Man 2 being like your second favorite superhero movie of all time kind of thing.
I know I wasn't
with this. That is a rough fall for you. So sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. Like this was very much like and this is probably one I think that like this is one of those like my opinion on this movie probably just changes every 5 or so years whenever I like go back and like rewatch or rethink these movies kind of thing.
Right.
And right now I'm just catching it in a moment of like, yeah, this is really dumb. And again, like I don't think I've ever seen a good Venom story. I will be extremely curious to see how Spider-Man 2, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation comes out later this year to see if like that can manage to win me over, because I just think I don't think there's a character to Venom, regardless of who's connected to the symbiote. I think it is just, it's there to be a monster. It's there to do kind of the Jekyll and Hyde thing. But if you don't have a good Jekyll, you're not going to have a good Hyde to come out of it either. And I just don't think
I don't
I've ever seen one.
disagree. I feel like I'm in between you and Cameron on this front, right? Like, I like Venom, I think, because he's such a cartoonish character. But like, I would never say Venom is, you know, the caliber of character of like Doc Ock or Goblin, right?
No, I think
or really a whole host of other ones. To me, Venom, maybe the closest parallel for like, you know, Batman, which is kind of the other superhero I'm most fluent in, would be something like Venom is to me like, I don't know, Killer Croc. Like, he's like this over the top kind of ridiculous cartoon character who can have really great beats and really great moments. But I'm never gonna be like, Killer Croc is the best Batman villain, right? Or certainly not the most, I think, one who can gauge the most emotional depth out of the respective hero. Venom is great though, but he's definitely not Doc Ock or Goblin.
It's the great stories that are about Venom and Eddie Brock are about how Eddie is really when it's about the dichotomy and like kind of the very different lives that two very similar people have lived. Eddie Brock and Peter Parker are both award-winning journalists, or photojournalists. There is a whole, but where Peter has suffered in like a lot of obscurity and outside of like J. Jonah Jameson doesn't have a lot of connections. Eddie had a lot of success and then is essentially duped in a almost like Geraldo at Al Capone's vault style, like losing credibility, ends up like basically
I forgot all about that.
Running down and like basically their lives running parallel to each other in a lot of ways, but where like Peter, even though he didn't have his parents, he had Uncle Ben and Aunt May who guided him and kept his life full of like love and care and compassion. Where Eddie grew up with a single father who was traumatic, like just traumatically abusive in many, many ways. And it's kind of like where they draw, like when Peter needs to draw from his strength, it comes from compassion and care and the foundational ideas of what it means to be a hero. Where Eddie, when he draws out something from himself, it's about that anger and resentment and hatred that he has in his heart. And that's what Venom feeds off of. And the Venom comics go in a very interesting way, especially when in the late 80s, early 90s, when they kind of commit to a anti-hero spin to the character.
Yeah.
His appeal really has just always been, he is a dark look at, he is a dark reflection of Spider-Man. In a way that I'm trying to think if there's like a character that as accomplishes it in that way. I think maybe the closest thing is Reverse Flash and Flash. But there's really not that's one of the reasons why I like the dichotomy between the two is because when they're separate from each other in the comic books, it's really done well because when they're separate, Eddie does very well. And as Venom is a great hero, but as soon as Spider-Man comes back in, that hatred and obsession, it comes back to Spider-Man and the humiliation, and resentment comes back and feeds into it and causes more villainous behavior. So,
Venom's better than Carnage, who really sucks, though. I'll give you that.
Carnage does suck. Carnage is red murderous venom, which means
Carnage is like actually just
hot,
like a monster.
He was hot shit in the 90s. Never been anything good since.
Yeah.
I mean, that's largely how I feel about Venom too. But yeah, like I remember the like Maximum Carnage video game that was basically just like Venom and Carnage as a Spider-Man game kind of thing, and yeah, not good.
The 90s were a great decade for Spider-Man.
Anyway, so yeah, it's a C for me. We got so far away from it, but I'll throw it out there anyway because I made a face. So if anybody was watching the video version, when you were like Peter draws from like his compassion for his strength. I'm like, no, Cameron, he draws from the spider DNA that bit him, and Venom draws from an alien goo.
Spider bite, right?
That's how they have their strength, my guy.
Eat my ass, Trevor. Eat my ass.
So let's dive into our Sinister Six ranking, which we actually now have a Sinister Six. So we have Doc Ock at number 1, Green Goblin at number 2. We have in this movie New Goblin, Sandman, Venom, and just to round out a 6, I gave Bully Maguire his own spot. So where do we want to put
I love you.
New Goblin first?
Oh God, we're gonna start there. I mean third.
Third, yeah,
right.
I'd say it's third for sure.
All right.
I mean, we only have 3 options so far technically because we haven't done
Exactly,
the
yeah.
other ones yet. But yeah,
So then beyond him, where do we want to put Sandman? Do we want to
Fourth.
put him above New Goblin or below New Goblin?
I think below New Goblin, like New Goblin being Harry Osborn and having the trilogy of films
yeah,
behind him, I think elevates him above all the other villains in this film.
Yep.
And he's certainly the most
agree.
villainous out of all of them. When he gets his memory
Yeah.
back and everything, like he definitely does the villain thing. He, despite all the promotional material saying otherwise, he truly is the main villain of this movie.
Agreed. It's also weird. We didn't really talk about it all in this episode, but Sandman's like villainous motivations even are really odd. Like there's not. It doesn't really explain why he's like suddenly like throwing cops around and like fighting Spider-Man. It's just sort of like, I'm a bad guy now. I'm doing bad guy shit. Even before he's like recruited to do it, he's just sort of like already a supervillain. So yeah, I agree with that as well.
Yeah. Venom. Where do we want to throw him into the mix?
I would say 5. We're going down with each one.
I would actually say we'll get into it with the next one, but for now 5. Next one,
You want to put? Ultimately, he's going to be 6.
Oh no, Venom to me is the worst villain of the entire Sam Raimi trilogy.
All right, then yeah. Where does Bully Maguire go into the mix here?
5.
So I would put. So this is an interesting one at least because like there's a lot you can do. I mean, like Bully Maguire clearly sucks. Like he's clearly last, but there's like also an argument made that like Bully Maguire is more effective in causing damage than Venom is in terms of like imploding relationships around him.
The jazz scene.
I was gonna
club.
say the jazz scene. For me, puts him above Sandman in this. Like, I think he is a more psychologically manipulative piece of shit.
I would actually agree with you on that. I will agree with you on that.
That's an
Move Bully
interesting
Maguire
argument.
above Sandman. I would do that because also Sandman at the end has that moment where he goes, "It was kind of an accident." Like I still like I'm not, but he also
trying to give him his Doc Ock redemptive moment.
I killed,
right, yeah.
according to All Out of Bubblegum, I killed 6 people, but I'm just gonna blow away in the wind.
Like he doesn't die. Like he doesn't die. He doesn't.
No,
he just
escapes.
escapes.
He escapes. Yeah, and Spider-Man lets him go.
Yeah.
What was because even like I've already blanked that. But like even like when he's like, here's what really happened. It's still like but you still kill. It wasn't like it's still really
it's
bad.
Basically like he said I could just give him the gun, but then my partner showed up and the gun went off. It's like, all right, so you still killed a man, and then
you still shot him. Yeah, you just
well, like he's not even saying he goes,
bad
"I'm not
with
going to
a
ask
gun."
your forgiveness. I just want you to know what happened." Like that's what I like, and that's why I think he's a less of a villain than Bully Maguire. I agree. with you,
Sandman
Trevor.
sucks. Put Bully Maguire ahead of him. I'm fine with it. Sandman
Yeah.
sucks. He's fine. Whatever. They can't commit to if he's a bad guy or not.
Yeah. So I threw in a couple new ones for the mix before we dive into overall rankings. For our cameos, obviously we've had Bruce Campbell cameos the entire run of this. Woo! So let's go ahead and rank the Bruce Campbell cameos. Of course, once again, the ring announcer, the usher, and the maitre d'.
Ooh.
It's tough, actually.
Yeah, this is hard.
Go, I mean, I'll say I would throw the ring announcer in there as number 1. Because he quite literally gives Spider-Man his name.
Well. Yeah, I would say that. That's for sure. There is he gets a lot more to chew on.
Yeah, I think he also gets the
one.
most to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I think it comes down to Usher and Mater D.
I really love him as the usher. I like
him as the usher a lot too.
He's so
just
good
like
as the usher because it's not even that he's speaking; it's the pointing to the sign. Like,
do your tie.
Do your tie? Yeah.
With your shoes and
tie.
You
can't come in, sir. No one may be seated after the play begins.
Yeah.
I think the usher is good too because like he starts off giving him like helpful advice and then is like, but also fuck you. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's really good.
Like he's doing all of that same stuff as the Mater D, just with a French accent.
Yeah.
A very bad, silly French accent. So like. I was thinking
with his drawn-on pencil mustache. God,
yeah,
it's so good.
I found myself, I'm perfectly happy to like let this go to the usher as number 2, but I found myself like thinking in this one, especially just the ongoing like, now bringing in no, don't bring
You're
in
right.
like,
You're right.
like,
I think
he
you're
has
right.
such an ongoing bit in this one as the Mater D.
There's no bad Bruce Campbell performance. We can rank this however we want.
Yeah.
I'm content with any of it.
Give us a different day or after we watched, like, if we rewatched one or two and be like, we'd probably put it above it. But yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I think the music, the cues, the oh yes, it's one of our favorites. The like everything he does in this one as kind of like setting it up. It's not my personal favorite, but I do think it's a better cameo.
Yeah.
I think my favorite is the ring announcer, and then it's
Ring
the
announcer
usher, because it's just it's just that dick bag move of making him like tie his shoe, do his tie, and then telling him to fuck off.
Yeah, because he's doing all of that other stuff, knowing he's not going to let him in.
Oh yeah,
he's just toying with him and just dragging it out. He's doing what I wish more ushers would do. Honestly,
absolutely.
Like more ushers should be like, "Hey, you showed up late. Go fuck yourself. Get out of here." Like I'm not going to let you in and ruin the show for everybody else. I'm not going to let like the lights of the street in the lobby just come in and blind everybody in the audience for a minute.
And on top of that, it's like, you know what's a great usher move to do? I almost said halftime, but
intermission.
Intermission is in 30 minutes. You can go in after, like, during intermission.
Yeah.
Like, that's what an usher would do.
Yep.
But apparently Peter showed up so fucking late. It's already after intermission there.
I doubt it is. I doubt it. I think he's just like, I'm not going to let you in at like midway through the first act. Anyway, so the other set of cameos, of course, to rank are the Stan Lee cameos. Once again, we have Man in Fair, Man Dodging Debris, and Man in Times Square. What do we want to rank these ones as?
This is another easy number one. I think Man in Times Square to me is easily the best one. I think it's a really nice moment between those two. Beyond that,
it's interesting because I will say, like obviously I'm fine. You guys are gonna put it in there anyway. His cameo in this one, I was like, oh god, like this is back before anybody told Stan Lee how to act or any like. Yeah. He's not good in that scene. He has a very like cheesy Stan Lee kind of line in that scene, but he's not like good. And so like for me, it was very much like the other two movies where he's like being just an everyday guy saving somebody's life from whatever's happening.
In the first
one, he does it in the second one too.
Yeah, it's true. He does. Okay.
He pulls somebody out of from the Doc Ock fight.
The other two I don't care about. Yeah, but him in Times Square I think is my favorite easily.
Yeah, obviously it is much more of a like, this is the ethos of Spider-Man
summation, right? Spider-Man,
and I guess one man can take it can make a difference. Enough said, I think, is the other thing he says in there, which is a reference to it's a reference to all of his letters from the editor kind of things. But all right, so Man in Times Square, number one. So are we going to have him saving somebody at Unity Day or saving somebody at the bank from the Doc Ock fight?
Maybe the bank. If I have to pick, right, I'd pick second.
Sorry, which one was that?
Oh, the one at the bank. I guess I'd pick second if I had to pick.
Yeah, the camera does linger on him a little bit more there.
Yeah.
All right. And then, assuming this continues on into the Andrew Garfield ones, we'll get some new additions there as well.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't see some stuff. But anyway, I digress. Nope, we're good.
I mean, I can think of in particular one of those cameos. I don't remember what the other one is, but like one of them is one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos of everything.
I agree.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought we were talking about villains for a second, going back and doing villains.
Whenever we do those, we'll absolutely just continue on with these. This
okay,
no more Bruce Campbell cameos, unfortunatately. But
no more Bruce Campbell cameos. Maybe we'll throw in his Multiverse of Madness cameo, and just for the hell of it,
pizza ball sales guy.
Yeah. Pizza Papa.
Oh gosh.
So in the rankings of this, I presume this is an easy bottom of the barrel. Spider-Man 3, number 3. Any arguments there, Cam?
No.
Yeah. Even as much as I had more fun with this one than you guys did, I still was the lowest ranked of mine as well. So
yeah.
Other suggestions. Our extra credit here, basically the same list as the last couple movies. Spider-Man 1 and 2, American Born Chinese, The Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Fantastic Four 2015, X-Men: Dark Phoenix, and X-Men: Apocalypse. Extracurriculars. Anybody watching anything else on Disney Plus these days? Or are we all just kind of in like we jump in for Spider-Man and that's it?
Secret Invasion.
It's interesting.
Have you been keeping up with Secret Invasion?
Oh, I have not been keeping up. I'm hopping back into it.
Okay, so that's not.
It's
what
interesting you say this because
let me rephrase that. I have started hopping back into it. Is what I should say. I started watching the third episode earlier today.
When I was watching Spider-Man 3 yesterday, I was like, I should watch Minutes on Disney Plus while I'm here. And then I ended up having such a bad time with Spider-Man 3. I was like, wow, you know what? I don't want to. I do really want to watch American Born Chinese at some point in time.
Yeah.
I think it looks really cool. That'll probably be a future D Plus thing at some point. We'll probably do a thing on it. But that's one that I am probably the most eager to watch.
All right. Yeah, I don't think I watched anything else on Disney Plus myself this week. So, but yes, next week, as I said, Cameron and I will be back with some more Secret Invasion stuff. I don't imagine Logan's going to be watching those and joining us for that. So it'll probably just be Cam and I.
Nope.
But of course, you are more than welcome, Logan, if you do. So that is going to do it for this episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for this run of Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. You can follow Logan at Lefty Logie, Logggy. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Logan?
I'll give a shout out to Let's Plays that go live on youtube.com/thatnerdysite. There are a shit ton of them. There's so many Let's Plays that we've done in the last year and more than that, honestly. Let's Plays gone back really far. I mean, sure, we're doing games and that kind of stuff. Operation Tango. I always see the half completed trophy list there. So yeah, go check out all of those. Cameron, I know he's finished it in real time. I think it's on live now.
It is all live.
Jedi Fallen Order Let's Play series is live, so go check all of that out. Cameron is an absolute monster for doing that. Rad for doing Dying Light 2. Trevor's got so many Zelda Let's Plays now from both Tears of the Fallen Kingdom and
No Fallen, but
No Fallen.
Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. You can check out all of those. And then Cameron had some Let's Play for some game. I don't even know what the hell it is.
Exoprimal.
Went live today or Tuesday. So go check out all those out. A lot of good Let's Play content we have going back years, and they're all great. Going back literally to day one, we did a whole bunch of Ultimate Chicken Horse. And Frank's got actually, it's one of my favorite Let's Plays on the channel, which is Frank's edited Let's Play of us doing Ultimate Chicken Horse and Trevor kicking our teeth in until I finally win the very last game we did. It's a great edit, great. You should go check that out too.
Yeah.
Go check out all the Let's Plays.
You can follow Cameron at RevCabot, 2 B's, 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
The only thing I can think of is this show that we're on. I guess Get That Nerdy Site show. We do that. That comes out every Monday. Most recently, Trevor and I got to talk about Exoprimal. Trevor talked about kind of his journey through Final Fantasy V at the time. We kind of got to gush a little about Final Fantasy V, and that was a good time. So go check that out.
Yeah. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. It was in the mix with all of Logan stuff, but I will shout out Cameron's Jedi Fallen Order series did end this last week.
It did.
So that was a 20 episode series that he did with that one. So yeah, definitely go check out the finale episode this last week. And yes, Cameron and I tag teamed our Tuesday Thursday drops this week on Let's Plays. I did Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town on Tuesday as I love that series, so I'll spend a few days out there farming, and Cameron jumped in and did some Exoprimal stuff, so definitely go check out all that fun stuff. Once again, as kind of a programming note, we'll be back next week with Secret Invasion, but then we're probably gonna be taking a good chunk of August off while I travel and while Logan moves, and Cameron just gets to enjoy not having to do stuff. So there you go.
That'll be new.
That's another good reason to go check out this upcoming week's episode of That Nerdy Site show, because it'll also be the last episode of that, presumably for a couple weeks as well, and I will certainly be talking about Oppenheimer and Barbie. I don't care really what everyone else is talking about. That's the one going to be on my mind. So that should be a good conversation before, Trevor goes off and goes to Disney World for the first time ever. I moved to the same time zone as the two boys, so that'll be exciting.
Oh, half the year you are.
Pretty good chunk of the I'm there. So that's everyone's on the same. We're closer. You know what I mean? So, yeah, go check out that episode as well.
Yeah. If you liked what you heard, once again, please like, rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. You can find all of the fun stuff we've mentioned over on That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, class dismissed, and thwip thwip.